Hey guys, my guest tonight, Gemma Jade, is going to be talking about those mysterious black-eyed kids. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? Welcome to the show. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means that if you think you have a paranormal need, we can help you out. It might take us a couple days to get to you because California is really huge, but we will get to you, like I said, within a couple days. In the case that we can't get to you, we do have psychics on staff who can call you and do a remote read, and if it does, and if what is going on does seem to be paranormal, they can calm the energy down most of the time. Okay, most of the time, and until we can get out there, and then we deal with it. Anyway, if you're watching from Facebook, and a lot of you are today, I see Jenna's in the green room. If you watched it, I got thrown off. If you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see in here today, please feel free to hit that follow button. Always looking for followers. Share us around, right? Share us around to your people and your friends. We're always looking to build up that way. It's all about, with this business that we're in, and I think Gemma will agree, it's all about sharing and getting the word out, okay? So when you talk amongst yourselves in the chat room, when you leave me show me some love and leave me a thumbs up or those hand heart thingies, that puts us up higher in the computer so Facebook sees us. And then from there, they usually put us on the For You page. And what that is, it's when you see that little hashtag thing that says FYP. When you slide down Facebook page, your personal page, you'll see where they have the reels. And then down below that, you'll see where they have suggested pages for you to look at, right? That is the For You page. So the more you comment and do this stuff, the higher they're going to put us onto that page. And then you look down, there we are being suggested. But in the meantime, if there's somebody in the house you think might like the show, bring them on over, send them the link, share, okay? Works the same way over at YouTube, all right? But at YouTube, I have over 1,000 videos, all of this show. And there's so much to look at. I'm a photojournalist, and I don't like to stay on the paranormal topic all the time. I like to vary it. Like, we've talked about the opioid epidemic and things like that. So, yeah, you can check that out. And what I've started to do was put everything in category folders because it's hard. When you go in there, it gives me a headache. I go in there to look on my own YouTube page, and it gives me a migraine because there's just so much there. So I've started to put things into categories. If you like cryptids, there's a category for that. Click on that. You can go look at different shows. If you're into medium Nancy Matz, she's got her own folder, etc., etc. Okay? And also, if you haven't subscribed yet to YouTube, please do that for me. I'd really appreciate it. Again, it's all about sharing. That would be great. Twitch, same thing. All the social media works basically the same, except when you hit TikTok and you end up for the likes, you have to double tap the screen. It's the only difference. Okay, rarity for me today in glasses. Right? If you're not aware of this, what happened to me over the weekend? I tripped walking into my house. I got out front to get some long pruning shears because I was going to do some work in my backyard on some ivy, and was walking in, somehow tripped, and I have one of those metal security doors for the outer door, and I got locked out a couple weekends ago, so I had it open, and there's an edge on it that's really thin and sticks out about an inch and a half, and it's steel, and so I fell forward, somehow lost my balance. Luckily, I hit the doorknob with my head, right up in here. Because had I hit that area on the security door, I probably would have broken my head open. So luckily with that, I didn't get knocked out or anything. Got right back up. Extreme pain in my left foot. Walked into the house. By the time I got in the house, the lump had blown up to the size of a baseball. Off to emergency. Everything checked out. Came home. iced it, and in the meantime, my foot's killing me. I knew what it was. I've had that happen before where it's a sprain, and so I was dealing with that as well. And then yesterday, when I was doing, yesterday when I was doing the show, I kept looking at my right eye thinking, something's weird with my eye. I don't understand why it looks like that. Got off, got off the air, looked in the mirror, and I have a black eye. And as you can see, some of it, you can barely see some of it down here. So that's why I decided to wear glasses to cover up the black eye. That's what I'm doing. I didn't want to have to be, stretching the skin for contacts or anything. Anyhow, so that's where it's at. So I'm recovering nicely. I just have this black eye now. I look like I got punched in the face. Okay, tonight's show, I'm excited. Gemma Jade, I heard her on another show. She's very knowledgeable about this. One thing that scares me at night, because my house gets really hot during the day, and so I have to turn on an attic fan at like 2 in the morning when it starts cooling down. Like right now, we're sitting at like 98. Okay, so it's starting to go down. Sometimes when it's up in those 110, 114 days, it takes till like 2, 3 in the morning before I can even open the front door, because in order to use this whole attic fan that I have for the whole house fan, I have to have the front door open to circulate the air through. And so I have that security door, the one that tried to kill me. But it's still a weird feeling because I have full view of my entry for my door right there. And I'm always thinking about the black-eyed kids, because I'm thinking, what if I look over there and they're standing there and they want to come in my house or something like that. So it really creeps me out as I sit there and think. Maybe it's because I know too much about this stuff or whatever, but oh man, that's the biggest thing in this paranormal gig that scares the hell out of me is the black-eyed kids. So that's what we're going to talk to Gemma about tonight. I heard her on this other show talking about that. It was a great show. So I'm really excited to have her. Let's bring her in and get to know her a little bit before we get into black-eyed kids. Here we go.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
I'm really excited. I'm definitely excited to be here. Any chance I get to talk about the BEK is exciting for me because they terrify me as well. And I've dealt with all different kinds of negative entities my entire life. And they're like the apex predator for me.
You have kids, and I took care of my mother, who had Alzheimer's. And there's days when I would go shopping that there was no wheelchair available for her or anything. I'd have to leave her in the car. She would just sit in the car with a soda, enjoy herself. And I always had that fear because you hear these stories about people getting in their cars, especially if they have kids, too. And you look in the rearview mirror and there's this thing is sitting in the back seat. And I always had that fear too, that would happen. Tell me how you got into all this.
Okay, so as far as the paranormal community, I've been seeing and communicating with spirits for as long as I can remember. I say since I was 4, but I think that's just when like most mediums and sensitives will say that because like that's when our first memories start, right? So probably since birth. And I've dealt with it, didn't deal with it pretty well. Tried to like use drugs and alcohol to block it out for a while, which like that it just makes it worse because then you look like a crazy addict instead of just like maybe, So got through all that and then finally just decided to embrace it and, do what I do, trying to help other people embrace their gifts and abilities and their spirituality and all those good things. But with the Black-Eyed Kids specifically, it was about 2013. And I was just flicking through the channels, no streaming, just regular cable, flicking through the channels one night alone in my room. And I came across the Monsters and Mysteries in America Brian Bethel episode with the Black-Eyed Kids. When I tell you from that second on, I was obsessed. I had no idea that in the future I would write, these books about them and I would get so invested and involved in them. But it was like from the very first time I even knew of them, they were like a part of me. Now they're just with me all the time, like in my head. And they're one of the only entities I'm aware of that like I've discussed that I've never met.
Me too.
No idea what they are.
I can say that. And then they have black-eyed adults too. I heard that a couple weeks ago. the black-eyed adults.
Yes,
So
yes, they do.
kids must
It's
grow
not
up.
exclusive to kids, but it's much
Right.
more common. Yeah. And I don't think they like grow up. I think black-eyed kids
Okay.
are always kids and black-eyed adults are always adults. I don't think there's like a growing process here. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, later. I don't
Yes.
think that they're like
Yes.
biological beings that grow the way we do and all that
Right.
fun stuff.
As a sensitive, what do you pick up on them? I mean, you got to get some kind of feeling from them, right?
So normally I can pick up from like a photo or even a text message if it's a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Photos of entities, obviously being right there with them is the best way for me to pick up on their energetic imprint, see what they are, what they're presenting as. With the BEK, I don't know. I know that with all the research I've put in and listening, I talk out loud to my guides, particularly when I'm in the process of researching and writing books. I'm like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
is this going to make sense, or is this true? And if they can, they'll tell me. But with the BEK, the only thing I've been able to come up with is that they're extraterrestrial interdimensionals, which is kind of
Okay.
one and the same for me. ETs do travel interdimensionally if you think about it on a technical level for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. And they are not demonic, or they're
Mm-hmm.
not demons. They may behave demonically and they may be demonic, so to speak, but they are
Mm-hmm.
not actual demons. They are something from another world, another
Mm-hmm.
dimension, another realm, however you want to put it. They're not from here. They are definitely other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just creepy because I mean, I've read the stories. The gentleman in England that wrote the first book, about them. That's my Bible.
I loved
And
it. Nick
oh yeah,
Redfern.
it's a great book. And the creepy part that I thought was really bad with some of the stories was the fact, okay, they come to your front door, let me in. You don't let them in, then they go to your back door, and they're standing back there
Or
by
your
you,
windows,
or your
or
window.
your third floor balcony, which there's like no way to get up there.
Right.
Yeah, they're very persistent.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I came up with after the book, this was in a recent interview. I think I did it last week. It hasn't even come out yet. This hit me like a ton of bricks. And it's not in the books because, again, it's a new theory where I don't think there's like, has anyone ever let them in? And there are these stories that are all over the internet, but anybody can put a story on the internet. So even in my book, Danger at Your Door, Terrifying Encounters with Black-Eyed Kids, I was like, I'll tell you guys about one of them, but I don't know if I really believe it or not.
Right.
I think there's no stories of people getting in
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think they actually need entry. I think the terrorizing and the energetic and psychic vampirism of the terror and the fear from the initial interaction, I
Mm-hmm.
think that is what they're after. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they need to gain entry. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why eventually they do give up,
Mm-hmm.
because I really do feel now that I've done more research, even since writing the books, that the whole point is that interaction. It has nothing to
Mm-hmm.
do with getting in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the legend of the whole invite them in and people get sick thing, is that just something that people came up with so they could rationalize it in their brain, like they do with vampires?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that did come from the one verified account. I don't know if it was David Weatherly or Nick Redfern, but one of them did verify this account where, just like you said, the mother left her 10 or 11-year-old son in the car. She ran into the
Yes.
store real quick, like on autopilot, ran out. And when she looked in her mirror to adjust her mirror, she saw this BEK silently, pale faced, just with its arm around her son. She ripped her son out of the car. And that, I believe that story was real,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't believe that, like, again, that it needed the terror, right? Because
Right.
I did another book about shadow entities, and what I talked about there was our fear and our terror
Mm-hmm.
and our sexual energy are the absolute most we give out at one time. It is
Mm-hmm.
like the maximum amount of energy we can give is when we are fearful or terrified, really, and
Mm-hmm.
when we're being sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fear and terror is even more so, and that's why they go for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's also why sometimes you'll see figures creeping at the foot of your bed. Is they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like waiting, you know. But I think that that's where those stories came from, where it's
Okay.
like, vampires of old lore and legend. They always needed to be invited in, and
Right.
these things are vampiric. So I think
Mm-hmm.
people just put it together, vampires, vampiric, when they come in. and we're not finding, bodies slaughtered with bites on the neck. So what could it be? Oh, just like the kid in the van that's been verified, or the car, getting sick, because that kid got sick with every disease under the sun for 18 months. It was just like he had the measles, they treated the measles, he didn't have that anymore. He had this, they treated that, he didn't have that. And it just kept going and going until finally his family brought him to the church. They did a 24-hour prayer service, and the kid was never sick again. But I do think that's where that came from. And I think people just trying to see how far their stories could go. You put a story on Reddit and it ends up like me. I put it in my book, like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I made up this story. And look, this lady's talking about it as if it could be real in a book, a bestseller. So I think that's a lot of where it comes from as well.
I agree with that. And then when you look at the TV shows as well, because you've got a lot of that stuff coming up on the TV shows. Just like, I don't know about you, but when I get calls from, Discovery or different producers, it's always, do you have a dark story for us? It's never, okay, let's talk about Uncle Bob. It's always, we want to hear the dark stories.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are lucky, because I don't get those calls yet. Those calls are like my aim in my career. But yeah, it is, because it's kind of become, and this is a double-edged sword for me. It's kind of become really fashionable, where, like, I don't think I'd had to have struggled through my abilities the way I did when I was younger. The Craft had just come out when I was in like freshman year in high school, and it was a very confusing time, and it was very judgmental time. I didn't talk about it, right? I was like the weird kid. And I think now I'd be able to embrace that. But with that comes a lot of people messing around with things they shouldn't be, a lot of people lying, trying to garner fame and attention. And one of the things I say, to that effect is, people are like, why, how is all this demonic stuff happening, and why, not just specifically now, but through the last few decades, the light workers seem to be taking hit after hit. I work in spirituality every day. That's what I do. And we're taking many hits as light workers, people with these kinds of sensitive abilities. Like, we can't win. That's how we feel, like a thing after thing. And I know a lot of people feel that way, but if you're on like the other side of this, the not light worker or not light being, it seems like you get what you want like that, right? But you have to think about it. Centuries or even millennia of people messing around with things like Ouija boards and spirit boards, and going into the woods to conjure stuff because it's fun. Let's have a sleepover and play Ouija. Every single time in the history of humanity that someone has done that without knowing what they were doing, they've opened a door. Whether it's a door to somewhere bad or good, they're opening these doors, and nobody's closing them. No. So why do you think now in 2024 this is so bad? That's one of the reasons, and I stake my reputation on it. It's because all of these portals are open. That's why people are disappearing at an alarming rate, because they're walking into these portals. I mean, it all connects, but I think people are excited by the paranormal and the supernatural, and that's good. I love it. Get involved and get excited, but don't lie and don't mess with things you can't handle. I just had to remove an attachment that attached to a client of mine 25 years ago, when he happened to be in a cemetery while someone else was robbing a grave, and the person took the head. This was like in the late 70s.
Wow.
And he was friends with the person. So the person long ago, I believe, passed. And the minute I looked at this dude, I was like, who are these two guys? And it was the like mayor of the town from like the 1700s, who's great. It was this whole big thing. And he had been carrying this darkness with him. He couldn't get a good job. He couldn't keep a relate, all these things. And once we remove that, he's doing so much better. But it's like he messed around, right? And you don't even think about that. You don't even think about that. You just got to be real careful, and people aren't.
I agree. Well, even going to Barnes & Noble or going to the toy store, there's blue Ouija boards for boys and pink Ouija boards for girls.
They're advertising it as a toy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took me 3.5 years of working with my spirit team to learn how to use a Ouija board properly. Number one, I still won't use it. And number two, if I were to try, it immediately goes to goodbye and shuts down. Because I guess I protect myself so much that nothing negative can get through. And that board must have something negative, because it never communicates with me, ever.
Yeah, well, it's like you say, people have inadvertently, opened these doors and not realized it, or they know something's going on, and they don't want to say anything because they don't want to be accused of opening that door. I know I've done cases with my team where, because I have like a 101 question questionnaire. I go through everything so I can figure out what we're dealing with. And I hate to say it, but people lie.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we have had instances where our psychic on our team or our medium on our team have gone through the house, and she'll get up in the closet and find, and way in the back, there's a Ouija board hidden up there with tarot cards.
Yep.
And then we have to confront them and go, look, you told me this, you've got this going on, this doesn't look good.
And like I've had that happen too, where I was like, wait a minute. I was like, move the couch. And we moved the couch, and there's like this little trapdoor type thing, and there's a Ouija board and tarot cards and like a doll. I wouldn't call it a voodoo doll, but definitely a homemade spirit doll. And the people really didn't have any knowledge of it. And then you have the cases where they did. For me, I could tell immediately when someone's lying for the most part, especially face to face. So for me, their energetic imprint switches. So I'll immediately know. But then, yeah, it gets very uncomfortable because you have to go to them. And some of them genuinely are like, oh, obviously not if they're hiding it, but like some people, you'll go into their house and you'll see, the Ouija board just sitting out like it's a toy. And they'll be like, I didn't know. I don't think in this day and age you could be that ignorant to it. But 20 years ago, sure, people did not know. Even with, I'm a professional oracle reader, and that's what I mainly do besides YouTube. And I try to tell people, like, please don't just pick up a deck and start going, because there's a certain process you have to do to protect yourself anytime you're doing anything that involves divining. It doesn't matter what your tool is, including tarot and oracle. And I think it's just the romanticizing that Hollywood has done of it. It has a lot to do with it.
I agree with that. Now, when we talk about these black-eyed kids, and it's true, nobody really knows where they come from and what they are exactly. Can you tell us a couple stories?
Oh, definitely. There are always a bunch that I tell all the time. So I was trying to think of some that maybe I didn't tell as much since the book came out. But there was one that was in my book that was told to me firsthand by someone that I knew, a friend of the family. And I can't tell you when it happened, but she was driving home. And, I live in New Jersey. We're in Jersey. It's the home of, we have more diners in this state than any other state, right? That's our thing, the Jersey Devil and diners. So she was driving home from a shift at a diner, and it was the middle of the night. And she was actually driving on, I believe it was Clinton Road, which is kind of very well known. It's in my area where I live now for having a lot of paranormal activity. I mean, people travel from all over the world to go and drive Clinton Road. And she had to drive down it. I have to drive down it every Sunday to get to church, kind of ironically. But she had to drive down in the middle of the night, and something happened with her car. I don't remember. It's in the book, whether she had like a flat or her car had stalled. And two girls come walking out of the woods. She's in the middle of nowhere. Now, this road is still pretty much unpopulated. There may be a house here and there. There were no streetlights back at this time. I remember going there as a kid with my family. Like my aunt and uncle and my mother thought it was fun to bring like us 5-year-olds down to Clinton Road. It's like what we did, and we didn't think anything of it. But it's very unpopulated, so there's not a lot of people around, and there's no street lights at this time, and there's nothing but woods. And these two girls, they look like young teenagers, and they walk out of the woods, and they're not saying anything at first. So she stops and lights a cigarette, and they're walking behind her, and she's like, I'm not going to panic, because she decided that she either had to sit in the car and wait for someone to drive this road, which was a very like small chance of that happening, or she could walk X amount of feet or miles to the gas station. She's like, I'm going to take my chance with the gas station. At least then I know for sure when I get there, I'll have help. So she starts walking. She's like, I'm not going to panic. It's just two young girls. She's like, I bet they probably want a cigarette. She's like, I'm going to ignore them though, because she got a really bad feeling. And that is one of the things with the BEK. Like before they even knock, you get this feeling of horror, like what, like wrong, something's wrong, before the knock even comes. So then she's thinking, oh my gosh, these are two young teenage girls that just came out of the, what if they're lost? What if they're afraid to ask me for help? Like she starts, the humanity starts overriding the terror. So she finally somehow starts talking to them, and they are so off. Like the tone is very robotic. The elder of the two is talking, but she's kind of robotic about it. Like, we need to call our mom. And, my friend was like, this is weird. And every time, like, she would say, well, I can't give you a ride. They wanted a ride to go call their mom to their house, all these things. But they couldn't answer why they were coming out of the woods, what they were doing. Did they live nearby? They weren't answering any of her questions. The girl just kept repeating the same thing. And after a minute or two of my friend not really knowing what to say and kind of trying to turn around and walk away, the eldest one would look at the younger one, and the younger one would start going, and like very fake, monotone, robotically crying. But it was like this. Looking up at her to see if she was, and then right back to it. And then when she kept walking, they would stop and the girl would do. So at the end of this encounter, she gets in, she's like, I'm just going to ride the rim if I have to. I need to get away from these girls. Like, she knew she was in danger. She didn't know what was happening, but she knew something. She's like, are they going to rob me? Are they, someone else going to? So she's like, I'm just going to ride on this flat and I'm just going to get there. So she gets in the car. As she's driving away, she looks in the rearview mirror. And the elder girl that had been speaking was kind of slumped over halfway. And the other girl was just poking her in the head like this. And she could hear the girl going, we need to call our, it was like there were two robots and one of them malfunctioned. And I love that story too, because it's a side of this we don't hear about a lot, because normally it's like they were very demonic, they were very evil. This one, they were very robotic. And I don't know if I would have even included it if I didn't know this girl, if I didn't know the area. It's one of those I'd had to vet before I would put it in my book. And man, I believed her. When I spoke to Dave Schrader about the BEK phenomenon, he said something to me that stuck with me. He's like, when you interview these witnesses, you can always tell when they're telling the truth, because they look off to the side and it's like someone who is remembering being in a war. They are just, they're gone. They cry. They have this visceral physical reaction to it. And that's what happened with my friend Chelsea. She was terrified. I don't blame her.
No, I don't blame her one bit. When you think about sightings of these kids, even though you can't verify them, of course, because how many sightings do you think there are of people actually seeing these, or are people just claiming to see these things because you can't prove it? But I mean, as far as sightings numbers go.
So that's the thing in our community. I always say to people, like, you're going to believe me or you're not. I can't prove to you one way or the other a lot of the stuff I'm saying, right? As far as the BEK, though, many people believe that this all started with Brian Bethel, the journalist from Texas, when he put his story, the one I originally saw on Monsters and Mysteries in America. No, that was just the first time it was put on the internet. The internet was just becoming a thing. I found stories going back to the 50s, the 40s, and then I found, and it is in the book, again, I don't know the exact details offhand, but these ancient tribes, I'm talking about from, not only Native American, Native Indian tribes in this region, but like Egyptian, they were building statues of these children made out of stone, and they were going to great lengths to find pure crystal obsidian, which is black, eyes. That's, I believe they're extraterrestrial. I really do. I don't know if they're hybrids that like went wrong and the ETs were like, just leave them on Earth to fend for themselves. I have another story where I believe a lot of them do have minders. So there was this man, and he was driving through the middle of nowhere. I don't remember what he was doing, driving to a wedding or something. He was driving through, and it was like the middle of nowhere. And he decided that like he was just going to sleep in his car overnight. He was going to pull over at a little dive bar, have some drinks, sleep in the car, and get back on the road the next day. He goes into the bar. He meets this woman. She kind of smells like formaldehyde, and she doesn't look very good. But like the more he drinks, she's buying him drinks. He goes home with her anyway to sleep with her, right? It's like typical. But he said that as she was driving him home, he left his car at the bar. He was worried that she was like a serial killer, because they were going even more like he thought the bar was in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, they go home, they do their thing. He wakes up in the morning very sick, and he gets up and he asks her for a ride back to the bar, and she says no, and basically kicks him out of the house. But as he's leaving, there's a house full of pale-faced, dirty, formaldehyde smelling black-eyed kids that kind of corner him in the kitchen.
Ew. How did he get
Um,
away? Oh my God.
they let him leave, but again,
Wow.
I think it was that fear that it was like that fear that they just needed from him. But this makes me think, do they have
Mhm.
minders? Because the woman wasn't a black-eyed kid or a black-eyed adult,
Mhm.
but I can tell you the formaldehyde smell, the obvious wig, that's all women in black territory.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. It
Very
was a very
interesting.
bizarre story, but I did believe it. I really did.
That's fascinating. I just wish, I hate to say that, for more information on this, I don't think we're ever going to get it because, like you say, if it is like a hybrid gone wrong, and they left him here. See, I always thought about. I read this by these guys too that I talked to about Sasquatch. That's one of my theories with Sasquatch because he's been related to UFO activity so much that when they were trying to put the DNA together for us, they obviously got the real old DNA, and then this is what they created. And then when they couldn't handle it, they put him back down on Earth.
I mean, I never thought of that, but it does make some sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you just don't know what's connected. I all this time did not realize we were live. I'm gonna share us. uh, get some gemstones in here. I don't know why I thought this was not a live show. I'm sorry, but I don't know. Like, a lot of people ask me, are Bigfoot and
Right.
the Fae connected? And it's just like sometimes I think yes, and sometimes I think no. And again, I guess it depends on your own experience, your own knowledge, right?
Right.
What you're going to believe in and what you're going to think.
Mm-hmm. 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 I just wonder, if somebody actually invited them in or handed them a cell phone, what would happen? Because that's pretty. The phone call thing is
Yes.
very frequent. They're forever asking you to use your phone, so it makes you wonder what
Yes.
would happen if you actually called a bluff.
Right. And not only that, like, the one thing that a lot of people, even people outside of this community, have never heard of a black-eyed kid, and they're like, okay, like, they have no idea what this is, are like, why are they knocking and not ringing the doorbell?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was a story of this man, an army soldier who lived on a base somewhere here in the United States,
Right.
and he was in the middle of the afternoon, middle of the day, doing grocery shopping. And he was unloading his groceries, putting them on the front porch. He opened his door, and his dog, so I think it was a pit bull, some kind of dog, it was a little smaller pup, and it would always come running to the door on like the hardwood floors, and you'd hear it running, and it would jump at him whenever he came home. And it was pretty sweet. So he's putting the groceries down on the steps because he knows the dog is going to come. He looks up
Mm-hmm.
to grab at the dog. The dog suddenly just kind of Scooby-Doo screeches to a halt and slides and
Mm-hmm.
hits the wall and runs back kind of head over butt to get away from him. And he's like, what is going on? Right. And the dog is like,
Mm-hmm.
he can hear it cowering somewhere, but before he can go check on it, he picks up the groceries. He's going to go in. He turns around to see what the dog could have had that reaction to, thinking maybe a
Mm-hmm.
bear or, it's a little kid, just one, who looks him dead in the eyes, these coal black abyss eyes, and says, I see it's food time. Can I come in for food time? I'm hungry. Let me come in
Wow.
for food time. And starts to take steps to go into the house. And this soldier he said he was more scared than he had ever been in his life. Like, forget being in war. He was terrified. He said, you need to go. You need to get off my property. He just felt something was wrong. The kid pulls out an apple literally out of its pocket and says, do you have any ketchup for this? Can I come in and get some ketchup? He said he ran inside,
Wow.
left the groceries. The dog was never the same again. Unfortunately, I believe it had to actually be put down because it was just never the same. You have them knocking and asking if they can use your phonograph.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they are in tattered, raggedy, like worse than thrift store clothing. I love me thrift stores, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
not the latest fashions, right? They're not
Mm-hmm.
very clean. Then other times they're wearing the style of the day. Other times
Mm-hmm.
they're dressed like they belong in the 1800s. So it's the phenomenon is so varied.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That
I
it's almost like you purposely can't pin it down.
Absolutely. And that comment about the phonograph. See, I find that interesting because We were out at the Wildendorfer house doing an investigation out there, very very haunted location, and one of the mediums was coming down the stairs, and I guess she was communicating without realizing she was communicating, because there's this one strong entity that hangs out on these stairs, and I had the video camera, so I figured, well, it's good footage to have her come down the stairs, right? She looks at the camera and she goes, "No photographs."
Wow.
And it didn't hit me till after the fact, because somebody looked at me and said, "Well, that's not her," because her voice was even lower. And I thought, okay, that's cool, she channeled somebody. But it didn't hit me till after the fact that instead of saying no video, it said no photographs.
Or even no pictures, right?
Or no picture, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's and it's there's always this presence too about who I call and who Brian Bethel referred to as the spokesman, the one child that speaks, because I've never heard a story where more than one of them, no matter how many there are, speaks. There's always the spokesperson. And they always sound very mature. And it's almost like they're not asking, they're telling you, like, you're going to let us in. There was one woman who, when she peeped out the peephole, they kind of responded to her as though she had said something already. She saw them and thought, Jesus Christ. And the kid looked right up, black eyes and all, right in at her through the peephole and said, "You know he's not real, right?" She hadn't said anything. She had thought it.
Wow.
This was great. This is like one of the best stories I've heard. So I did some research into the white-eyed kids, which are a whole different thing. A lot of people think they're connected. I don't think and I think they might be connected, but I don't think they're the same. But this one was a connection, a black-eyed kid and a white-eyed kid in the same story. And I do believe the guy. He said that the black-eyed kids, he had the whole ordeal, let us in. No, they were kicking his door and pounding on the door. Finally, he's like, "I'm going to get my gun." So he figures he's going to scare these kids. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's going to scare them. He goes to get his gun after like 15 minutes of arguing back and forth and being so scared. He gets the gun, he flings his door open and aims it. And he hears a voice in his head that says, "Lower that." He immediately does it without even thinking. And he's not looking at black-eyed kids anymore. He's looking at a young adult, 19, 20 years old, white eyes, all white eyes. And all this being or person said to him was, "Where are they?" And he said,
Wow.
I don't know. I was going to shoot him. And the white-eyed kid looked around outside of the house, looked right back at him and said, "You won't ever see them again," and walked off. As the white-eyed person walked off, the door closed. When he ran to look outside of the door, not open it, but look out, everyone was gone.
Oh, wow. Now that's
what is going on? Yeah, like what is going on? Because they're normally found, in my research, I found in the woods. And I believe they send people on missions, but that's a whole other video on the white-eyed kids. But yeah, it was just so unique to have both. And I'm just wondering, like, how are they connected? What's up, Ron? Hello, Marissa. Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just weird, like you say, because there's no information on them, and and every time they come out, it's a similar action that they do each time. Like they're programmed to do this stuff.
Scripted, programmed, exactly. And another thing I've been noticing in a lot more recent stories, whereas I didn't hear any of this in like the much older stories I came across, was this popping sound. And you'll hear this loud popping sound, almost like a firecracker or even a gun. And, this one dude that lived on like the 3rd floor of a building, and there was no way to get on his balcony. It was just like for him to look out of or sit back and relax. He had to go to the door through the building. You know what I'm talking about. And he hears this loud pop, and he's looking around. He's like, "That was weird." Next thing you know, there's this black-eyed kid knocking on the balcony door. And he's looking around like, how did it even get? He was not opening that door. He was like, he's like, "Gems, listen to me." He's like, I would have left my mother out there if she showed up with that kid out there. He's like, I was not opening the door. There's also, and I've said it, like, it's like whoever is training them to like act human, there's like something missing, because there is compulsion. There's compulsion involved where they'll get you to put your hand on the door, but it's always incomplete, because immediately you're like, "Oh, what am I doing?" And you pull it back. So again, I don't think entry is what they actually desire. I think it's just the fear of considering letting these things in. And I think that's why they make themselves known. And
Mhm.
the reason I think I know that they're not demons is because demons throughout the centuries have perfected looking like a normal child,
Right.
right? There are
Right.
demons that trick human beings all the time through this guise of, I'm a helpless spirit child, be my friend, help me.
Mhm.
They don't have
Mhm.
the black eyes. Now,
Mhm.
demons do have black eyes most of the time, but not when they're pretending to be kids. And they're much
Mhm.
less obvious. They really present themselves in the way that a child spirit would. These
Mhm.
things are very, but they're strange. They're
Mhm.
just strange.
Ron would like to hear about your scariest story.
Okay, so I don't have any personal ones, thank goodness, but I do always tell people, like, with everything that I've been through in my life, my husband, he's a boomer, he's much older, and he doesn't believe. He doesn't want me talking about it. He doesn't want to know about it.
Mhm.
He would open the door. Like, he wouldn't even think twice. He'd be like, "Oh, kids," and open the door. Like, so I do get afraid of that. We live in the middle of the woods, but I
Mhm.
don't have any personal experience, but there is one that I thought was like super duper creepy. It's in the book. So when I did Danger at Your Door, so many people were like, "Oh man, more encounters." So what I did was I released the companion book called Midnight Visitors that is only encounters. That's all it is,
Mhm.
and they are true encounters. So anyway, there was this young teenager that went with her mom to the beauty salon. They were driving an old
Mhm.
pickup truck. And the teenager didn't want to be seen in the beauty shop with her mom. So she's like, no, I'll just wait in the car, like listen to some music. The mom's like, I'm going to be a while. So if you want, that's where I'll be. Come on in. So she's
Mhm.
sitting and she sees a kid, even though it's kind of hot out, with, jeans. Like she thought it was someone in her high school. It's a small town. There's only one high school. If there's a teenager her age, they go to her school. She's thinking, oh,
Mhm.
cool, someone I know. They had a hoodie on. She's banging on the window. All of a sudden, they turn. She sees their face. It's no one she knows. They're pale. They don't look human, and they have black eyes. She's so scared.
Wow.
She freezes. She tries to like look away. Before she can even look back up, this was like millisecond. The kid is at the side window. She locks the door, banging, "Let me in. You got to let me in. I want to come to your house. Let's hang out." She's so scared and doesn't know what to do. She's yelling, "Go away." The black-eyed kid is like not even acknowledging she's speaking, just keeps banging. She
Mm.
goes between the console and the seat onto the floor and covers her head like this. The thing knocks for like another 10 minutes. Then it's gone. She looks up, it's gone. She stays down there. The mother comes out after a while, and the mother's shaking, can't get her keys out. There's something wrong with the mom. There's something wrong with the daughter. They're both looking at each other. The mother goes, "What happened to you?" She's like, "Oh no, something just freaked me out. I thought I saw something." She doesn't want to freak her mother out. She doesn't want her mom to
Mhm.
think she's like on drugs. So she puts her seatbelt on. She gets back in the seat. She's like, "Let's go." The mom goes, "Something very strange just happened to me." She goes, "I had a teenager that I thought was one of your friends walk into the beauty salon. So here is a public place where they were able to get entry without asking.
Mhm.
Okay. They didn't have to ask. They just walked in, this black-eyed kid, I believe it was a male black-eyed kid,
Wow.
and said, 'Your daughter's in the truck. I need the keys. I'm going to drive her to your house.'" How did the
Wow.
BEK know who the mother was? You know what I mean? Like, and the mother said,
Right.
"I'm not giving you my keys." And once the mother kept saying, "Get out, leave me alone," the BEK was like unstoppable in its force of like, "Give me your keys." Finally, when the owner of the establishment came out and said, "You have to leave," the black-eyed kid mechanically dropped its arms, turned around, and mechanically walked out the door and into nothingness. So it didn't need the invitation in a public place, but once the owner rescinded that invitation, "You have to leave," it immediately stopped mid-sentence, turned, and walked out. Nobody ever saw it again because you
Wow.
don't get a second visit. Never heard of
Right.
anyone getting a second visit.
Wow. That's spooky. That is
That
really
one,
spooky.
oh, that one was really scary.
Oof. When you find these stories, or when you're searching for these stories, where do you look? Are you on Google looking for this stuff, or is there any place in particular that you're able to get them? Because I would think now, with the awareness of all these TV shows, that people are more open to talk about them.
So I look on the internet like everyone else,
Mhm.
like Reddit or other sites. I read the David Weatherly and Nick Redfern books. To me, they're kind of beyond reproach in their research. So I know if they told
Mhm.
the story has been vetted. I know
Mhm.
people now that well, I would ask people, and I knew a couple people that I was like really surprised that they'd had these encounters way back when, and they decided to tell me.
Mhm.
But now that I'm on YouTube, I mean, I'm not huge. I have almost 5,000 subscribers. But like now that I put these books out, now that I'm on YouTube, I get email after email after email of people like, Gemma, please, I don't even care if you tell it publicly, but here's my story. I just need to tell somebody. So now, and when I did Danger at Your Door, I was at the point where the stories were just coming to me without me even having to ask, even though I was putting it out there like, hey, I'm writing this book. If you want me to include your encounter, I need to be able to speak with you personally. I need to be able to do a video call. Like, we're going to need to talk, which I did with every single encounter that's in that book. I did speak to on video the person, except for there were two that I couldn't. There was one encounter, and it was a really super long one. You have to read the book at the gas station, and the one with the mother in the van that we talked about earlier. But that's because Nick Redfern had already vetted that story, so I knew that it was okay to put in. But yeah, they just come to me, just like with any other entity. The Glimmer Man, I'm getting so many stories. I'm ready to write a book about that. When I did Shadow Entities, the stories were astronomically large, like the amount that I got. So now they come to me. But in the beginning, I was just searching the internet like everyone else and hoping that I'd come across some true information, and trying to get a feel for what I believed was true. Some of them I didn't believe at all. Some of them, I remember reading one, some guy sent to me, and he's like, yeah, you won't believe it. When I finally did open the door, I looked them right in the eye and said, I know what you are. Cut the BS. And all of a sudden they transformed into mantis beings. And I was like,
okay.
I'm like, all right, guy, I'll get back to you. Like, I don't ever want to judge someone else's experience. But for me, that was a little bit out there. So I wasn't willing to put that in any book where my reputation's at stake.
Absolutely.
Again, I don't want to judge anyone. Did it happen? Probably not. But, I can't say for sure. Maybe it did. It just sounded ridiculous. Because I get those types of stories too, that are pretty out there, even for me. And I don't think much is ridiculous, to be honest with you. When it comes to the paranormal, I have learned to just expect everything. I have this thing where if I'm in a public place, I will know everything about everybody. Do you ever watch True Blood, like Sookie? It's not really like that. Like, I can hear their thoughts, but I'll sit down and like the guy behind me is cheating on his wife with the girl that he's with. The cook in the kitchen like beats his wife. Like, I had to find a way to shut it down because it was very overwhelming, and but I still don't really leave my house much because of it. I don't know what that is, but that also helps me, I believe, determine like who's kind of full of poop and who is being honest,
Yeah. It's like that scene in Twilight, right? When he takes her to dinner and they're sitting in the dining room. Yeah.
Just like that.
He's looking from person to person and describing what they're thinking.
Just like that. It's the weirdest thing. And I've never been wrong. I used to just approach people, and I used to, I'm in Jersey, like I'm in northern New Jersey. So I've gotten like hit for approaching people. So I've since stopped doing that. I'm 41 now. I don't need to be like in these streets, but, yeah, a lot of my own ability I don't understand, but that is one I definitely understand. And 99.9% of the time I could tell when someone's lying. Their energy doesn't match what they're saying. You're talking to me about a black-eyed kid, an unknown paranormal entity that transformed into this crazy giant extraterrestrial, and your energy is still, red, happy, joyous. It doesn't match. But to that guy, you can definitely write some good science fiction if you can ever find a publisher. If you're listening, I'm not hating on you, but I just didn't believe you.
The other thing that I look at too, and like even with all these paranormal TV shows, they drive me nuts. I don't like watching them.
I don't watch them either.
I do watch the ones, however, that involve police officers, and first responders, because they're trained observers. And I figure if you're going to get a good story, you're going to get a good one out of them. Just like the gentleman you talked to that was in the military. He's trained. He's a trained observer. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I say it on my channel all the time because I talk about truck drivers' experiences and police officers' experience. And I always say in those videos when I'm talking about police, firemen, to me, in my opinion, and you don't have to agree, to me, they're more credible because they have everything to lose by putting this out there. There is nothing for them to gain by putting this information out there. They are ridiculed by the departments a lot of the time that they work for. There's just nothing for them to no reason for them to want to put their reputations at stake like this. So I do believe people like that are more reputable. I absolutely agree. But as far as I'll watch Dave Schrader because he's my buddy and I just love him.
Right.
But as
Right.
far as these like actual ghost hunting, first of all, can I just tell you one thing that drives me nuts as a
Go
medium,
for
as
it.
a sensitive? Imagine, okay, you're deceased. You know you're deceased. You're wandering around. You're a spirit. What am I going to do? Nobody can see me. Nobody can talk to me. 200 years you do this, and
Mm-hmm.
finally you see people, and you're like, oh my gosh, they've got cameras or whatever, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, they're telling me to say my name. I'm gonna talk to them. They want to talk to me. These people, wow, interaction. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is what a lot of spirits think. Wow, this is scary, but I'm gonna do it. And then you say, Charlotte, and all of a sudden everyone goes, ah! They're screaming in your
Mm-hmm.
face. They're running. That would
Right.
terrify you. And for me, it's like you're just antagonizing these poor spirits who've had, a lot of the time they really are just people, former people who need the light.
Mm-hmm.
And you're asking them to do something and then screaming in their face and acting like a jackass once they finally do it. And I understand ratings, but at the same time,
Right.
I feel for the spirit, I guess. Imagine that someone, you say your name that someone asked you to say, and then they start screaming and they're going, that would be terrifying for anybody. And I don't like the antagonizing that goes on. You should
Mm-hmm.
never demand anything of any spirit because you never know what you're dealing with. They put themselves
Mm-hmm.
in great danger. And then you find out years later that people that were very well respected are faking.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Absolutely.
really don't know there either. I do watch the Ghost Brothers too, I have to say. They're my boys. But I mean, you find out so many of the like original people have gotten to the point where now they're being accused of faking because they can't keep up with ratings. And then it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
become about knowledge anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
it makes us in this community who really are looking for the truth and who really are living it every day, whether we can help it or not, look like buffoons. Like,
Mm-hmm.
look at these paranormal investigators. Of course, they were faking it. And like all the work that we are doing, trying to really bring the truth and the facts to people, is now
Mm-hmm.
overshadowed by these professionals who were caught faking evidence, right? It
Mm-hmm.
makes what you do look bad. It makes what I do look bad. And we still have a long way to go before we're publicly accepted in the first place. We've
Absolutely.
worked so hard, just for these buffoons to ruin it for ratings. No, I don't like them.
Well, that's the thing, and I mean, people don't realize it because they're watching the buffoons. That paranormal investigating can be very boring at times
Oh my,
because
yes.
they're not getting all that activity going on. I mean, you're having to piecemeal stuff together and all this stuff, and that's what I find, like you say, that's what I find offensive about the shows is that when I go out to a client who is a fan of the shows, they want to see the stuff right then and there. Oh, what'd you get?
Yep.
You're in the back bedroom. What'd you get? It's like, well, it doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
you know.
No, you're
And
absolutely right.
yeah, people
It,
don't
it
realize that.
raises it puts this unrealistic expectation on us.
Hmm.
Me too. I used to do where people would kind of like the Dead Files, nothing to that degree. But again, it would
Right.
never be to that degree because I was doing it in real life. And I think
Hmm.
that show is fairly accurate. And I believe everyone on the show. Um,
Hmm.
But for me, it was like I'd go in and they would want me to be like, okay, there's a guy upstairs in the attic. And he's saying, like, no, I have to feel the place out. I have to get the spirits to trust me. I
Hmm.
have to build a rapport. I can't just go in and invade their territory. They're going to hide from me. They're going to make
Right.
themselves unknown as best they can. It just, like you said, it just doesn't work like that. And there are these unrealistic expectations of
Hmm.
what to expect. I
Hmm.
couldn't remove a Jin from my own mom's house
Hmm.
because we can't. We're not one-stop shops a lot of the time. A lot of mediums
Exactly.
have different things that we're good at, just like everybody else.
Exactly.
But we're expected to be this like entertainment to the point of like it being a farce for everyone to watch instead of like the people that call us for real help.
Hmm.
It's like the real help goes to the side because they want to see a ghost, and it just doesn't work like
Hmm.
that. You're absolutely right.
I was going to tell you that because I was just thinking, a few minutes back, I get calls all the time where people are insisting it's demonic.
Oh
Come in
yeah.
and cleanse my house. And I try to, and I hate to disappoint them because I'm like, you know what? We don't even know what we're dealing with yet. Before we can do a cleansing, not one, it's not a one cleansing fits all. Okay. Before we can
You're
go in there
right.
and even do anything, we have to really, really, look at what's going on. and then we could figure out what or who we're dealing with, and then take it from there. We might have to call in a shaman. We might have to call in a Native American shaman to come in and deal with this,
Yep.
or a priest, because Catholics aren't going to be able to deal with Native American stuff. It's all specialized, and people don't
No,
realize
you're
that.
absolutely right. And they just don't want to hear it. And I find a lot of the time too, I was getting people that were like pushing back on me. They're definitely dealing with something. They're sending me footage and images, and I can see that they're scared. There's something happening. So I go in and like, I know it's a demon. So they're thinking it's a demon from the door. When really, I think like I'd say if I did 10 of those, right? Because I eventually stopped doing them. I just couldn't take it anymore. Like 6 out of 7 times it wasn't demonic. It was a scared earthbound spirit that was presenting itself as something much bigger and larger than life to keep the humans that it was terrified of away from it. But they don't want to hear that a simple healing ceremony or like me bringing the light is enough.
Right.
They want to see the action. They want to see the candles, and it's all fun and games until someone gets possessed, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. And I even remember going on investigations just before COVID where people were disappointed because I didn't have all that stuff they have on TV.
Just lying around. Just lying around.
Cha-ching, But I mean,
right.
It's like we don't have to have all that equipment. You don't have to have all that equipment. That's what people have to know. I mean, in the old days, they didn't have the K2 meters. They didn't have all that stuff. It was all by their bodies and real study going in on this stuff. And that's what you do. That's what you have to do. Otherwise, it's a disservice to clients.
Absolutely. I think I use an app on my phone, and I use if I even use that, and I do a lot of automatic writing, and I do a lot of talking back and forth to the spirits in the house. Now, if I could see that they're in like a place where they need something, I will speak back and forth and tell them. Otherwise, I just do it in my head. I mean, if you're going to leave me to work and figure out what's going on, or do you want me to put on a show? Because I can do either or, but you're going to pay extra for the show. If you want a show, I'll come in with the black gown and the veil. But you're going to pay extra for sure, because a lot of the times it's much simpler than they think.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've walked into places where they have all their friends are with them because they want to see the show. So I've just looked at my team and went, "Don't worry about it. Just whatever you get when you're in there, go on out there, sit down with them, and report it to them, and then come back in, and we'll continue. We're just going to keep this going. They keep the peace and all this."
It's hard. It's kind of like they get in their own way by getting in our way. I feel for you. Absolutely. I really do. Really
Absolutely. Do. So what's the next steps for you in the BEK?
I'm thinking about writing another book because I definitely have enough encounters. And like I said, I've come upon like some other theories since writing that book. And that book was released in January of this year. So, and then Midnight Visitors was like, I think the end of January, like they were one after the other. But I think new theories, as I speak to more people and do more research, new theories develop. So as far as me and the BEK, I hope they stay very far away from me, and I will research them from afar and probably write another book about them. I'm planning on doing another one on shadow entities, and tomorrow I've got a book coming out. It's called Dawn, Mysterious Disappearances, Volume 3. So it's the 3rd volume. And I'm talking about missing, very, very strange missing persons cases. The ones where, like, in the woods or otherwise, it's like blink and they're gone and they're never seen or heard from again. Right. But I'm doing something I don't see a lot of people doing, if any. And I'm flat out telling you what I think happened here. And I write at the beginning, I don't mean any disrespect to the memory of any of the victims or to the families, but we need to start looking at the supernatural, otherworldly, paranormal angle to these cases, or they're not going to get solved. There is no way that I blink and you're right in front of me and you're gone without a trace or a sound, and something other is happening here. And until we start talking about it, so I wanted to start the discussion. So this is my 3rd book on that.
Fantastic. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been great. Oh, I could pick your brain all day. In fact, if you don't mind coming back on at some later point to talk about stuff, that would be great.
I mean, I gave you my phone number earlier, and you have my email. Just let me know. Especially once my son goes back to school in September. I'm wide open from then on during the school year. So
very, very cool. Yeah, you're a fascinating individual to talk to. You really are. And
thank you.
I was so glad you came on tonight. How can people find you?
So my YouTube channel is just called Gemma Jade. I
Mhm.
am on Rumble. I'm not doing much on there yet. I'm still kind of setting that up. And
Mhm.
TikTok is Gemma Jade YT. I'm trying to get 1,000 followers because I do intuitive oracle. So your best bet, if you want to get to know me a little bit,
Mhm.
Friday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern time, myself and Ghost Dragon ZW over there, he's my co-host. I will
Mhm.
pull one card from a random oracle deck, and I will give you a free intuitive oracle read to get a feel of it. And my email is gemmajadeParanormal@gmail.com. You can hit me up for services or information, autographed books. And my books are just, you can type in Gemma Jade books on Amazon and
Mhm.
all like 10 of them will come up. And that's about it right now. I'm kind of YouTube and writing and a little bit of TikTok.
Very cool. Thank you again, and I will
Oh,
definitely be
thank
in
you so
touch.
much. This was awesome. Yeah, anytime.
I
Just hit
loved
me
it.
up. Thanks for coming
I
in,
loved it.
guys.
All right.
Good
You have
night.
a great evening. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye. All right. Oh my God, that was so fun. She knows so much knowledge about this stuff. We're gonna have to get her back on. I really appreciate her coming on. Tomorrow, I won't be here tomorrow. I have a doctor's appointment in another town in the afternoon, so I don't know if I'm going to make it back in time. But, I did do an interview today with the guest that was supposed to go tomorrow night. So that's all done. So that's what you're going to see. Her name is Debbie Blake, and she's got a book out about cats and magic. Okay, how you can, especially she is a witch, so she incorporates her cats in with her spells and stuff to help her cast her spells. So come on in tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Check that out. In fact, I'm going to be releasing it, the information for that one within the hour here as soon as I get this built up on the RSS feed. So that'll be tomorrow's show, but it's a brand new show, even though I won't be live. If I'm back in time, I'll be in the chat room. I'll be live in the chat room, but I wasn't sure because there's huge traffic like after 3 o'clock coming in from the southern portion of the state. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be here in time, which is why I did this way. Okay, so yeah, come on in tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Like I said, the thing will go up on Facebook and everywhere else, so you guys can find it. But I want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Let me see. I'm checking the chat room. Thank you, Ghost Dragons, Ron Forrest, and Marisa for being in the chat room today. I really appreciate it. And yeah. Anyway, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio, and we're always looking for people to join our Boo crew and follow us. And the more the merrier, I say. But I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. And if you haven't subscribed, followed us over on Facebook, please do so on our Facebook page. And if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so. We run paranormal shows Sunday through Friday every week. So we're always here doing this stuff, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, unless the guest asks for a special time. So thank you all, and share the show, share, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, uh, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll either be in the chat or you'll just see the video because I don't know if I'll be back in time. All right, I'll see you. Have a great one, and enjoy Cats and Magic. Bye.